You open your eyes, and the first thing that registers is the world has walls. Not open sky, not the wide floodplain your genetics were written for, but a ceiling of green so thick the light coming through is filtered down to almost nothing. The air hits you like something physical, not just warm, wet, heavy, pressing in from every direction at once with a smell so layered and alive that your brain doesn't have a filing system for it. It just takes all of it in and logs it under unknown, which is not a category your species has needed before. Your forward-facing eyes are scanning for movement automatically, the way they always have, and they're finding movement everywhere, and none of it makes sense yet. Something screams about 40 feet up in the canopy. Something else answers it back in the Cretaceous. Sound traveled across open ground in straight lines and told you useful things. Here it just tells you that this place is extremely loud and extremely full of things you have no record of. You are 40 feet long. You weigh somewhere around 9 tons. You are, by any reasonable measurement, the most dangerous land predator that has ever existed on this planet. And the first thing the Amazon does when you arrive is make you feel like you're standing inside something that hasn't noticed you yet. The canopy above you is roughly 30 meters up and closed so tight it's running its own weather system underneath. The humidity is around 90%, which your body has no framework for because the late Cretaceous was warm and wet, but not like this. The heat here doesn't move, it just sits on you, and your body's already working to manage it and already not quite winning. Your tail moves to balance your weight, and it clips a tree trunk that you did not see because the forest is that dense. There are trees in every direction at every distance, which is new because your whole hunting strategy is built around open straight lines and open ground and the ability to close distance at 12 miles per hour on terrain that isn't actively trying to trip you. Your genetics are telling you a lot of things right now. They're telling you that you're the apex predator. They're telling you that forward-facing binocular vision plus 60 teeth built for bone means that whatever moves near you is food. They're not telling you anything useful about where you are because where you are is 66 million years outside your operating context. This ecosystem has been here for roughly 55 million years. It has refined itself against every predator, every disease, every invasion that has ever walked into it. The things living in this forest right now are not here by accident. They survived. Every single one of them. Something small drops from a branch above you and lands somewhere in the dark undergrowth, and you track it, and then it's gone, already absorbed back into the green. Your first step lands in soil that's soft and deep and not what you expected. Your genetics say you're the apex of everything that has ever walked on land, and your genetics has never been to the Amazon. The hunger arrives fast, which is not a surprise. Because you are 9 tons of animal, and 9 tons of animal requires a lot of fuel. The number your body is currently demanding sits somewhere between 40,000 and 80,000 calories per week, which is a calorie target that sounds extreme until you remember that you are the largest terrestrial predator that has ever existed, and your metabolism did not get that memo about portion control. Back in the Cretaceous, this wasn't a complicated problem. You had sauropods. You had ceratopsians. You had prey animals that weighed multiple tons and moved at speeds that were charitably not impressive. The math was simple. Here, the math is not simple. What the Amazon has instead of sauropods is tapirs, capybaras, giant river otters, pecaries. These are, to be direct about it, not the same thing. A large tapir weighs around 600 pounds on a good day, which means you would need to kill somewhere between 5 and 8 of them every single week just to break even on calories. And that's before accounting for the fact that everything in this forest has spent millions of years getting very good at not being eaten, which is a skill set your previous prey never really needed to develop because nothing in the Cretaceous was hunting sauropods from the shadows. Your genetics are expecting a different menu entirely, and the restaurant you're standing in has never heard of it. So you find a tapir. Your forward-facing eyes catch the movement about 30 feet out, which is genuinely impressive target acquisition, except that 30 feet enclosed canopy Amazon rainforest is basically nothing. There are trees in every way. There are roots in the way. There are plants in the way that don't even have names yet. Your vision is built for open ground pursuit, for locking onto something across a floodplain and closing the distance before it can react. Here, the tapir is already gone by the time your brain finishes calculating the angle. It just disappears into the undergrowth, and the forest absorbs it completely. And you're standing in the same spot making a sound that probably communicates something in the neighborhood of confusion. You try again with a different tapir, same result. And then a third time with the capybara, which should theoretically be slower, and that also doesn't work because the capybara runs directly into water and you have other priorities right now. The binocular vision is a real problem here. Forward-facing eyes are excellent for depth perception, excellent for judging the exact distance to a moving target, excellent for everything you need when you can actually see the thing you're hunting across open ground. In dense canopy, through your field of view is basically just whatever patch of forest is directly in front of your face. The tapir saw you first. The tapir always sees you first because the tapir is short and low and completely familiar with this terrain, and you are 13 feet tall and sound like a building falling over when you move. The kill that finally happens is not a strategy. You come around a bend in a riverbank where the tree cover breaks slightly and there is a tapir standing at the water's edge, and you are both surprised. The tapir has maybe half a second to process the situation. 4 seconds, start to finish. You eat the entire animal because of course you do, and you stand there for a moment at the riverbank and the hunger is still there, only slightly reduced. Like you've taken the edge off a problem that has not actually been solved. You ate a 600-pound animal in roughly the time it takes a human to tie their shoes, and you're still hungry, which is going to be a recurring theme. By day 3, the Amazon has already introduced itself in a way the Cretaceous never did. It starts with the ants. You're moving through a stretch of ground cover near the river, and you put your foot down on a mound that is roughly the size of a small boulder, and roughly 500,000 bullet ants have opinions about that. The venom from a single one of these ants produces pain that researchers have described as walking over burning charcoal with a nail embedded in your heel, which is a sentence written by a human who weighs 180 pounds and not 9 tons. So in terms of actual danger to you, this is nothing. Your foot is the size of a dining table, and the individual stings are lost somewhere in that mass of tissue. But your nervous system still gets the message because pain is pain regardless of body weight, and the signal coming up from your foot is loud and confusing and new. You've never felt anything like this in your life. The Cretaceous did not have bullet ants. You lift your foot, which scatters approximately 200,000 ants into the leaf litter, and you stand there for a moment processing a threat that you cannot see, cannot locate, and cannot do anything about. This is not a good feeling for an animal that is accustomed to being the most straightforward problem in any room. The spider situation is worse, or at least stranger. You're drinking from the river on day 4 when something large and brown and moving extremely fast comes off a root system at the water's edge and ends up approximately 2 inches from your nostril. The wandering spider is about the size of a dinner plate, which is not a meaningful threat to you in any biological sense, but your face is not a threat assessment committee. Your face just sees something large and fast and moving directly towards your nose, and you lurch sideways hard enough that your shoulder hits a tree that is probably 60 years old and has not had a great day. The spider leaves, you stand there, your brain is doing its best. But the thing that's actually grinding you down isn't the ants or the spider, it's the heat. Not the kind of heat your genetics understand, the dry, open heat of a floodplain where at least the air moves, but a different kind entirely. The canopy above you is trapping everything. It's 35 degrees at ground level and the humidity is sitting at 90%, which means the air is not really air so much as warm, wet presence. Every surface is wet, the ground is wet, you are wet. Your body's designed to regulate temperature across a range that did not include a closed canopy jungle acting as a greenhouse at full capacity. You're burning energy just staying at operating temperature, which is bad news when you're already established that the food supply here is insufficient. You start moving toward water instinctively and spending longer stretches near the riverbanks where the air moves slightly and the temperature drops by maybe 2 degrees, which is not enough, but it's something. The river helps. The river is cooler and open above, and your body knows what to do with that. You've found the rivers, which solves the heat problem and creates an entirely different one. The black caiman is 14 feet long and has been hunting at this bend in the river since before you arrived, and it does not care at all about your size. It has been sitting in that murky water for about 3 hours, which is not unusual because patience is essentially its entire personality. It weighs 400 kilograms, and its eyes are flush with the waterline, and from where you're standing, it looks exactly like a floating log. And the Amazon has a lot of floating logs. So you lower your head to drink and the caiman launches. What happens next takes about half a second. The caiman comes off the bottom at a speed that nothing its size has any business moving at, and it's targeting your face, which is the correct tactical decision because your face is where you're vulnerable, and the caiman, despite having a brain the size of a walnut, has apparently worked this out. What the caiman has not worked out is that your reaction speed is also not what it was expecting. You pull back and your head drops and you catch it, just like that. One bite in the caiman, which has been the unchallenged ambush predator of this riverbend for years, is just gone. That is the whole fight. It lasts less than the time it took you to find this spot in the first place, and the caiman had no contingency plan for this outcome because nothing in its evolutionary history suggested it needed one. Here's the part that matters though. In the scramble backwards, your left leg catches the bank wrong, and a sharp edge of something, root or rock or exposed clay, opens a cut along the lower leg about 4 inches long. It's not deep, it's not serious by any reasonable measure, You've survived worse in the last week just by navigating the forest, and you stand there on the bank bleeding slightly and eating the rest of the caiman, and the whole situation feels like a straightforward win, which it is, mostly. Except for the water that got into that cut, and the bacteria that lives in that water, and the parasites that the caiman was carrying, and the other things that just exist in the Amazonian river systems the way humidity exists here, which is constantly and everywhere and in quantities that are genuinely difficult to explain. Your immune system is extraordinary. It kept you alive through 68 million years of pathogens and injuries and a world that was also actively trying to kill things, but those pathogens went extinct with your world. The organisms in this river evolved after you did. Your immune system has no record of them, no memory, no response queued up, nothing in the database. You are the most dangerous thing that has walked into this river in recorded history, and the river just put something into your bloodstream that you have never encountered in your entire existence as a species. The wound closes over the next 2 days, and you have no way to know what came in with it. 2 weeks in, the jungle starts making a different kind of sense. Not because you've gotten smarter, you haven't. Your brain is roughly the size of a banana, and it's not running a strategic analysis of the Amazon basin. What it's doing is something simpler and more reliable than strategy, which is that it's noticing patterns. The river to the east has more movement near its banks in the early mornings. The trail that cuts through the gap in the canopy where the light actually reaches the ground is used by things with hooves. Your forward-facing eyes, which were built to lock onto hard ressort across an open floodplain and calculate the exact angle of intercept, work dramatically better here at the forest edge where the trees thin out and you can actually see more than 8 feet in front of you. The closed canopy was the problem. The river corridors are something else entirely. So you start using them. Not deliberately, but the riverbanks keep producing food, and things that produce food are where you go, and eventually this becomes the pattern your days are built around. You move along the water in the early hours when the capybara come down to drink in groups of 15 or 20, and they are slow in the way that only something with no natural predator is slow, which is a problem for them because you are not natural. You are 9 tons of evolutionary mismatch, and you've arrived in their water source, and the math on that goes one way. A capybara weighs about 150 pounds. You need to kill roughly 30 of them to eat well for a week. The math is bad, but the Oxbow Lakes help because the Oxbow Lakes are stocked the way the rest of this jungle isn't, and you find this out when you push through a stand of vegetation at the edge of a flooded lake, and there are capybara and giant river otters, and 3 separate things that your genetics file under ignore because they're too small to be worth the energy. You eat 6 capybara in one sitting, and it barely covers the daily requirement, but it's the most efficient hour you've had since the tapir at the riverbank on day 2. The giant anteater is not fast. This is its main flaw. You find it in a clearing near a termite mound, and it looks at you the way something looks at a problem it cannot categorize, and then you kill it in under 2 seconds, and it weighs maybe 90 pounds, which at your scale is closer to a snack than a meal. You eat it anyway. 2 more tapirs go down near game trails over the following days, including a juvenile that weighs so little you almost feel bad about it. Almost. You don't actually feel things. And then there's the anaconda, 23 feet long and somewhere around 400 pounds, and it's been doing what anacondas do, which is lying absolutely still and waiting for something to make a mistake near it. What it did not model into that strategy was a 9-ton theropod stepping directly onto its midsection. It reacts the way anacondas react, which is to coil. It gets 2 loops around your lower leg before your brain finishes processing what's touching you. Then you look down. Then you bite. The whole thing takes about 8 seconds, and it costs you more than you expected because 400 pounds of muscle coiling against your leg is actually a real mechanical problem even at your size. And there's a moment in the middle where the squeeze is genuinely unpleasant. You eat the anaconda in 4 bites and you do not think about it again, but you also do not step into tall grass the same way you used to. Something has changed in the forest, and it started quietly, the way things in the Amazon always do. You haven't noticed it, which is fine because you don't notice patterns the way something with a bigger brain would notice patterns, but the tapirs have. The tapirs near the central stretch of your hunting corridor have been rerouting for about 3 weeks now, which sounds like a small adjustment until you realize that tapirs have been using those same game trails for generations. They didn't move because something scared them once, they moved because something scared them consistently enough that the old route stopped feeling worth it. The peccary herds did the same thing with 3 separate water sources along the river bend, which means there are now large sections of your territory where the prey just isn't showing up the way it used to. The Amazon is a system and systems respond to pressure, and you are a tremendous amount of pressure concentrated in one place. The jaguars are the more interesting part of this. Before you arrived, the jaguar was the top land predator in this ecosystem, a position it had held for somewhere around 3 million years, which is a long tenure by any reasonable standard. It was good at the job. It had the territory mapped, the prey patterned, and the whole operation running efficiently. And then you showed up and covered 40 square kilometers of its hunting ground just by existing in it. And the jaguar did what intelligent animals do when they encounter something they can't fight. It left, not panicking, just quietly, efficiently, permanently redirecting. You didn't win a fight. You didn't even know there was a fight. Here's the thing about jaguars, though. They're not gone from the Amazon. They've just gone somewhere you can't reach them, which is the deep canopy. That tight interior forest where the understory is layered and the root systems are dense and uneven and the light barely makes it to the ground. Your feet are built for open floodplain, flat, hard-packed ground where you can push off something solid. In deep canopy, every step is a liability. The footing is wrong, the visibility is zero, and your body is basically too large to move efficiently through space that was never built for something your size. The jaguar fits in there perfectly. You don't fit in there at all. So the jaguar is still hunting deer, still hunting carries, still doing everything it was doing before you arrived. Just in the 30 square kilometers of dense forest that surrounds your corridor like a buffer zone. The ecosystem didn't collapse when you showed up, it reorganized. It found the gaps around you and filled them in and kept running. The prey learns your schedule. The competitors found your blind spots. The whole system is routing around you the way water routes around a rock in a river, not fighting the rock, just moving past it efficiently, which is something the Amazon has been doing for a very long time and is quite good at by now. The jaguars have not gone anywhere. They've just gone somewhere you can't follow them, and the Amazon has been making that calculation since before your species existed. The leg has not healed the way it should have. 3 months into the Amazon and the tissue around that caiman bite is running warm in a way that nothing in your evolutionary history has prepared you to interpret. You can't feel the difference between a wound that's closing and a wound that's doing something else. You just know that the leg is there in a way that it wasn't before, and the Amazon knows things your immune system doesn't. The bacteria living in that riverbend evolved roughly 65 million years after your species went extinct, which means your body has never once encountered anything like it, which means your body has no idea what it's dealing with, which means the bacteria are having a genuinely great time. The parasites are worse. There are organisms in Amazonian river systems that have spent millions of years learning exactly how to get through the defenses of the things that drink here. Your defenses are Cretaceous. The pathogens are not. This is a mismatch in the same category as your genetics telling you there should be sauropods everywhere when there are only tapirs. The biology is just misaligned and in a direction that benefits everything except you. What makes this hard to track is that nothing obvious has changed. The forest looks the same, the river corridors are the same, the prey is doing what the prey does, but your energy output is going up and your range is coming down, and those two things moving in opposite directions is not a good sign for any 9-ton predator that needs a specific number of calories just to maintain its own body weight. You burned more on your last 3 hunts than the 2 weeks before them combined. You're covering maybe 60% of the ground you were covering a month ago before the effort starts feeling like effort. The lowland tapir yesterday was the clearest version of this problem. You almost lost it. The sprint felt different at the end, like something in the calculation was off. Not dramatically, not enough that the tapir got away, but enough that you noticed in whatever way you're capable of noticing things. The tapir is dead. You ate it, but the sprint felt different, and that matters more than the kill does. Your immune system's working constantly now, burning resources that would normally go into movement and hunting. The Amazon doesn't need to send anything large after you. It already sent something microscopic through a cut on your leg 2 months ago, and that thing has been doing what it does ever since, quietly and without any interest in your size or your jaws, or the fact that you're technically the most dangerous land predator that has ever existed. The Amazon never had to beat you in a straight fight, and it wasn't trying to. It was just being the Amazon, which has been enough for everything else that has ever wandered in here thinking it was the toughest thing around. So here's the actual answer to what happens when you drop a T-Rex into the Amazon rainforest. Short term, you win. Easily. The first month, you're genuinely the most dangerous land animal in the Western Hemisphere, and it isn't close. Nothing here has a response for 9 tons of binocular vision predator that can bite through a car and move at highway speeds in a straight line. The prey hasn't learned you yet, and the ecosystem hasn't figured out what you are. You're winning by a significant margin, and it feels correct because your genetics say it should feel correct. But the Amazon is not a fair fight, and it was never trying to be. The large mammal biomass here is spread across thousands of square kilometers of terrain that actively works against you. Your prey learns fast, routes around you, disappears into canopy where your vision is useless and your footing is bad, The thermoregulation problem doesn't go away. You spent half your energy budget just existing at 35 degrees under a canopy that holds heat like a closed car. And then there's the invisible problem, the one you have no answer for, which is that this ecosystem spent 65 million years developing bacteria, parasites, and pathogens that your immune system has never once encountered and has no idea how to handle. The Amazon doesn't need to beat you in a fight, it just needs time. Right now, you're standing in your river corridor, still hunting, still massive, still the most dangerous thing anything nearby can see. You are the most dangerous thing in the Amazon, and the Amazon does not care.